We have these patterns that we developed for a reason that served us at one time. And now our job is to decide whether or not they still serve us. And that ability to say, this no longer serves me, I want to do it in a different way. We're going to move into Teri's going to do some brain spotting with us. But I just wanted to throw out an acronym that we use a lot in addiction counseling, and it's called HALTS: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed. And so a lot of times those are our primary triggers for engaging in our addictions. And so part of what Teri's going to do is now give us another option instead of engaging in our superhighway to our addictive behavior, something that we can do to manage those things, like especially stressed. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but always being aware of those primary triggers. And there's so many more subtle triggers, but that hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed. So then Teri's going to talk to us about brain spotting.
Mhm. So I want to offer you a little bit of a practice that you can do, something that's been really helpful for me. Over the last several years, I've trained in a modality called brain spotting. And it comes out of, if anybody's familiar with EMDR, it is a little bit different from EMDR, but it started to kind of come out of that. And in brain spotting, what we're really saying is where you look is how you feel. And what I really enjoy about this way of working with people is that brain spotting takes the fact that our body is not disconnected, it is all connected. And a lot of it comes through our eyes and relates to the brain and the wiring of all of the neurons and the neural pathways in our brain. And there is actually scientific data that says sometimes when we experience something that is traumatic or something that really throws us for a loop, sometimes in the processing end of things, if you want to think about a file drawer, sometimes the files don't go in to the correct file drawer. And they end up blocking a neural pathway that then relates to our emotional, physical, spiritual stability and can cause some problems for us, especially when those triggers arise again. Because many times when we experience a trigger, it takes us right back to the origin. And so that can be really difficult for people, especially if they don't have good coping mechanisms. I know for myself in the past, I've experienced where I've been thrown off for the entire day and just kind of struggling to get everything recentered so that I could function again. So brain spotting has been super helpful in the sense that when we work with people or when we experience this, I don't need to know what somebody's working on at all. I just need to help them find that brain spot. And when we can find a brain spot and we correlate, so the best example I can give to you is if you've ever experienced when you're talking to somebody, but you're looking in a different direction. And what's really interesting is the brain will coordinate with the eye because something is too painful or difficult to look directly head on. So your eye will look a different direction so that it takes a little bit of the sting off or the intensity off, so that whatever it is that you're trying to reprocess or you're trying to express out can actually come out. Kind of some fun facts about the way that in my 4 years of learning this, it has just been amazing to learn what the brain can do and the capacity. So we have these capacities to really be able to do some self-healing. I don't suggest doing all your work on a self spot. A self spot is really good for when you can't make the shift or you need to make a quick shift and you can just kind of self spot, express that energy so it can come up and out. And then usually what we find is that trigger isn't keeping you tied up for the whole day or several hours. You can shift it within a matter of minutes. And so I wanted to show you, I want you to put your hand in the back of your head, kind of in the nape of your neck, up toward your brainstem at the top. This area of your brain, I just want you to put your hand there so you know where it is. It's called the subcortical. You can take your hands away. It's called the subcortical part of the brain. It's the oldest part of the brain that we have. And what's interesting is we have the prefrontal cortex that Sherry had talked about, kind of like the master planner, the master leader. And what's interesting is when things get shifted into that subcortical, sometimes it's really, really difficult to get that information out. And when it does come out, it travels up toward the prefrontal cortex. So it needs time, but once it gets here, it processes very quickly. What people find very difficult sometimes is getting into the subcortical part of the brain. And that's really what brain spotting helps us to do. So I want you to take a minute and think about the emotion that comes up for you that pushes you into those soft addictions. And if you have to close your eyes for a minute, sometimes it's helpful. Think about the emotion or think about the event or however you want to frame it. What comes up for you? And when you're ready, just kind of come on back and open your eyes if you have them closed. And then I'm going to ask you to follow me with this pen. So when we look for a brain spot, I want you to think about that emotion that you feel. And we're going to try and find the brain spot. So what we're going to do is I want you to very slowly let your eyes go over to the left and just notice if you feel it kick up that emotion. And if you feel it going over to the left, wherever you felt it, just stay there. Kind of mark that spot. And then I'm slowly going to come back because that spot could be in the center. So what you're looking for that emotion to kind of churn upward where you're really feeling it. And now I'm slowly going to go over to the right. And you just keep going with your eyes to the right and scanning to the right as far as you can. And again, if you feel it really kick up, just kind of stay there with your gaze so you have your spot. Now I'm going to go upward. So I want you to stay on that spot where you first initially felt it. And now we're going to move upward. And just notice if you get a higher register as you look upward. And then we're going to come back down. And again, if you found it upward, move to that spot. We're going to come back downward very slowly. And if you find it as we're moving downward, bring your gaze to that particular spot. So stay on your spot, and I invite you to just notice. Notice whatever it is that's coming up as you look at that spot. And you have options with this. So if it's very intense for you, which it can be, we have two things. We have shades up, which means your eyes are open, or shades closed. So you can close your eyes if you need to. And as some things might be coming up for you, I invite you to be curious. You don't need to figure it out. I just want you to be curious about whatever is coming up for you. And again, I just invite you to notice thoughts, feelings. And if you are feeling any intensity, I invite you to just take a breath, a deep inhale and an exhale, because that energy is coming up, and just allow that energy to flow out, to express itself out. Now we're going to add another little layer onto this. Notice with whatever it is that's coming to you, notice where you feel that in your body. And just put your hand there. And just notice what's coming up for you as you're touching that part of your body. And how that feels in a sense to just touch that part of yourself. And again, if it feels intense, I invite you to take a breath. Don't judge anything that's coming up. If there's a bunch of chatter, pictures, whatever it is that your brain is sending you, just honor it and just notice it. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to judge it. Just notice what's coming up for you. And again, I invite you to take a deep breath in and just exhale it out slowly. Internally, if there's a dialogue that you need to have with that part, whatever it is that you need to say to that part to help it along in its healing the trigger process, just take a moment and say it. Express it to that part of you that needs to hear your words right now. And when you're ready, you can just slowly open your eyes and come on back. And again, what I want to say is I did quadrants with you to find that brain spot, but a lot of people many times can just kind of look around the room and they can find that spot where, wow, it really kicks up. If we were to use a scale between 1 and 10, I would say you're looking for something that's probably over a 5. That really, when I say kicks up, that's what I mean. And then that's the spot that you look at. It's perfectly okay if at any point you feel like you need to look at another spot. Sometimes our brain spots will change as the energy is traveling and as those neural pathways are releasing whatever is in there. As it's releasing, the body is expressing itself out. Now, you're not sitting on my end, but as I'm watching people, you might be thinking, well, nothing's happening. And what's really interesting is, as a practitioner, when we're working with people in this modality, every little movement is the brain actually connecting to whatever it is, that emotion, that trigger, and that spot that you're looking at. Every little movement, from the lip moving to the eyes squinting, is the body expressing that energy out. That's what's really beautiful. So if you're having one of those days, this is something, and I'm honestly going to say it's something that you really have to stop and make yourself do. You don't have to do it for a long period of time. But when I'm having a really heavy day, or, we all have those days when a trigger comes up around something and it's needling us, and sometimes we don't even know what's causing it. And here again, it's not important. You don't need to know that information up front. What I encourage you to do is just to sit yourself down. And again, you can find a spot where you're really feeling that and just look at it, notice it. You're not there to judge it. You're not there to fix it. And as we keep going in this process and noticing, what you're going to find is more and more stuff starts to come up. It might be totally unrelated to the trigger, but it has value because that neural pathway is storing that information. And that information needs to be released so that it can be reprocessed and we can get the file in the right file cabinet. Does that make sense for people? I just want to make sure that that's making sense and, everybody's jiving with that. And then I'm just going to invite 2 or 3 people, if you would be willing to just kind of share a little bit about what you experienced in that little exercise.
What came up for me, like thinking about my soft addictions and my spot, was comfort. They all were ways of comforting myself. And then when I felt it in my shoulders and I put my hands on me like I was hugging myself, I just started crying. I'm probably going to do it again because I realized my body and everything in it is all I need for comfort. I don't need those other things. It just felt really good. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad that you could share that, because what we don't realize is that the body keeps the score, and the body has memory and it remembers everything and it holds those memories. So I'm so happy to hear that when you touched your shoulders, it's like they felt loved, they felt cared for, and your body just went, ah. It's fabulous. So I'm so happy that you had that experience. And now you have a tool that's really easy to use. And as you can see, it doesn't take a long time. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Very powerful process, Teri. Thank you. You've been on me for years to experience this. So I went immediately back to a toddler and the toy box and being told they have to put all the toys back and being the good boy and feeling it in my gut, feeling swallowed. And so there's eternal dialogue going on there. And so my eyes, it was down. When we went to the down, it's like, okay, I'm going into the basement of my gut. And it was anger. And it was hard even admitting that it was anger. But I know that when I go to soft addictions, it's because I feel like I need a treat. I've been a good boy too long. I've worked all night. I've done. Screw it. I'm going to watch reels, or I'm going to, you know. So this was hard to come to a resolution with because it's an ongoing dialogue. But the resolution came of just forgiving myself, forgiving myself and not having to solve it, having to, okay, now I'm never going to be a good boy again, or I'm always, or anything like that. The brain wants to come up with a solution for me. And what you said is just honoring it, loving it. And yeah, I got some strength in here because I can both have discipline and I can know when I need some time off. So one's not a good or bad. Beautiful process, Teri.
I love that, Jim. Thank you. And what's so beautiful about what Jim is saying, and it's really important, it's the noticing aspect. What's made this so beautiful for so many people who especially have a lot of trauma issues is you don't necessarily have to relive anything by talking it out or telling anybody. But the beautiful thing that I love about this process is that it brings us to an awareness of what's going on. And what's really weird is that thought of, I need that fourth cupcake and how that relates to going to the basement as a child. You know, you wouldn't necessarily think that the two things are going together. But what I love about this process is it brings us to a conscious awareness of where could that trigger be coming from? And is there something more that I need to address and that I need to look at? It also gives us that insight of when I have that trigger, aha, it triggers me to want to eat sweets. My body's telling me I need something sugary, sweet to, you know, again, kind of shove that down. And this is a way that allows us to start bringing that information up and being able to access it. And that's what, for me, has been just a wonderful breakthrough with using this modality. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more takers, so I appreciate the sharing that was done. Again, this is something very quick and easy. Your breath always is, to me, that's your first plan of defense, is to take a breath no matter what's going on. But if you have a little more time where you can just sit quietly, this is a beautiful way, and also combined with the breath. I do brain spotting a little differently. I don't always follow the rules, but I tend to go intuitive because I think the breath comes in as an aid in us being able to release and clear. My belief is we can easily go back into whatever it is that we were looking at with the brain spot. So when things get heavy, or it seems like it's too much, or you're having an emotion, especially if you are emoting, I don't want you to hold that emotion or the emoting. Take a breath, cry through it. Allow yourself to just express that out once and for all. It could be as simple as it will never bother you again because you have finally released, you've gotten to the origin point of where it's stored in the body, and then you can release it out. If it comes up again, this is a really good mechanism that will allow you to shift it. I am not a proponent of saying that we always have to cure or heal everything, because many times we'll spend a lifetime working through it. But what I have a tendency more to gravitate toward is the word management, and also knowing that we have the ability to shift. It doesn't mean I'm never going to experience a trigger. There's thousands of triggers around us all the time. And it just depends on which little one is paying more attention to you at the time. But what I love about this is it does allow us to kind of take that break, to push a pause button, to really have that quiet conversation of where might this be coming from. And it allows us that moment combined with the breath to just let it go. Because many times we've got to carry on with other things before we can really give whatever is going on, if it continues to bother us, the time that it needs. So does that make sense for everybody? This is not the fix, but it's a quick fix that you can do. Okay. And I'm not letting you off the hook, because if you notice these things, it's really sending you a message that, aha. And what's really beautiful is that the brain and the body are both sending you a message that it's time to address this. And so if you're getting that vibe, then I really encourage that whatever, there's tons of brain spotters out there that work in this modality. Not all of them are therapists. You're not required to necessarily be a therapist to use this modality, but there's plenty of them out there that if you felt a little bit of a connection to this might be a great avenue for you to pursue for yourself. So I find it to be very helpful. I hope it is something that you can remember to do, and hopefully this is going to be a helpful tool for you all.